There was something special about the 1980s. Not just the fashion, not just the neon lights or the synthesizers, but the way music made people feel. The 80s gave us ballads that were more than songs.
Imagine when this race is won, then I go.
They were confessions, late-night memories, and sometimes the only way people could say what their hearts were too afraid to say. These were songs about love that lasted forever, and love that ended too soon. Songs that played final cassette tapes during long drives. Songs that echoed across dance floors at the final slow song of the night. Today on vibezcure, we're traveling back to that unforgettable decade. A time when emotion ruled the airwaves. These are 10 unforgettable R&B leaning ballads of the 80s that still give listeners chills decades later. And trust me, some of these songs almost never existed at all.
Sitting in a sandpit, life is a short trip, the music.
Number 10, Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper. A soft piano line opens the door, just a few notes. Nothing dramatic, nothing demanding attention, the kind of melody that sounds like someone remembering something rather than announcing it. Then a voice arrives, gentle, slightly fragile, but filled with a kind of emotional clarity that makes the room feel smaller and more personal. When Cyndi Lauper sings Time After Time, the performance feels less like a pop recording and more like someone quietly telling the truth. The early 1980s were full of bold sounds, bright synthesizers, big drums, loud choruses, but this song moves differently. It walks instead of running. The story inside the lyrics unfolds slowly. A relationship has passed through joy, confusion, distance, and reflection. The narrator looks backward and forward at the same time. I'm trying to understand how love can be both fragile and dependable. Behind the vocal, the arrangement begins to expand. A steady drum beat appears like a heartbeat finding its rhythm. The bass line settles underneath the melody, warm and grounded. Synth textures drift through the background like light reflecting off water. Nothing is wasted. Every musical decision supports the emotion at the center. The chorus arrives with quiet certainty. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me, time after time. There is no dramatic explosion, no wall of sound. Instead, there is reassurance, a promise repeated with calm confidence. That emotional clarity is one reason the song has traveled so far beyond its original moment in 1984. Over the decades, Time After Time has become one of the most covered songs in modern music. Jazz artists reinterpret it with smoky intimacy. Soul singers stretch the melody across gospel harmonies. Indie musicians strip it down to acoustic whispers. And somehow the song survives every transformation. Because at its core, the composition is simple and honest. 2 chords. A melody that rises and falls like conversation. Lyrics that speak directly to the universal experience of loving someone enough to remain present, even when life becomes complicated. In many ways, the song represents the quiet, emotional side of the 80s. The side that existed away from flashing lights and crowded dance floors. The side that lived in headphones late at night, where listeners replayed certain songs again and again because they sounded like someone understood exactly what they were feeling. That's why the song still works today. The technology has changed. The production trends have changed, but the emotional structure remains intact. A voice offering comfort, a melody holding space for reflection.
Time after time.
and a promise that still sounds sincere decades later. Time may move forward, but some songs move with it, and time after time continues to travel beside every new generation of listeners. Number 9, Carrie by Europe. A piano note appears alone in the room. Then another. The sound is delicate, almost hesitant, like someone gathering the courage to begin a difficult conversation. This is how Carrie begins. Before stadium lights,
Please don't ask for more.
before power chords, before the emotional storm that will eventually arrive. Just a piano and a voice trying to explain something that has no easy explanation. When Joey Tempest wrote the song, the intention wasn't to create a rock ballad that would echo through arenas. In fact, the earliest version was much quieter, almost fragile, the kind of demo that feels more like a personal diary entry than a radio single. The story is simple. Two people standing at the edge of a relationship that once meant everything. No anger fills the lyrics, no dramatic accusations. Instead, there is something much harder to face: acceptance. Tempest sings as if he is looking directly at the person the song is about, acknowledging that life sometimes moves people in different directions, even when the emotional connection still exists. The piano carries the weight of that realization. Every chord feels deliberate, like a step across uncertain ground. Then slowly, the band begins to enter. Guitars arrive first, gentle but growing stronger with each measure.
This might be our last go.
Drums follow, giving the song a pulse that mirrors the rising emotion in the vocal. The arrangement expands gradually, building toward the moment when the chorus opens wide. Carrie, things they change, my friend. It's a line that captures one of the hardest truths in adult life. That time changes people. Circumstances change dreams. And sometimes the love that once held two people together becomes something they can only remember. When the song was released in 1987, audiences responded instantly. It climbed the charts in the United States, eventually reaching number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. But the statistics only hint at the deeper connection listeners felt, because Carrie became something more than a hit single. It became a soundtrack for moments of quiet realization, for late-night drives where memories begin to surface, for the final slow dance when the room grows silent and couples hold each other a little tighter. The power of the song lies in its honesty. It doesn't promise that love always wins. It doesn't pretend that every story has a happy ending. Instead, it recognizes that sometimes the most sincere act of love is letting someone walk their own path. That emotional maturity is rare in popular music, and it's one of the reasons the song still resonates decades later. Because every generation eventually learns the same lesson, that love is not only about holding on. Sometimes it is also about understanding when it's time to say goodbye. And when that moment arrives, Carrie is still there, waiting quietly at the piano, ready to tell the story again. Number 8, Take My Breath Away by Berlin, a single synthesizer. A note floats into the air. It doesn't rush, it doesn't demand attention, it simply lingers. Like a breath held just a little longer than usual. That opening sound became one of the most recognizable musical moments of the 1980s. But when Giorgio Moroder began composing Take My Breath Away for the film Top Gun, he wasn't trying to create a chart-topping hit. He was trying to create a feeling. In cinema, romance works best when the music leaves space for emotion to rise naturally. The right melody can transform a simple glance between two characters into something unforgettable. Moroder understood that, so instead of building the track around heavy percussion or dramatic orchestration, he chose atmosphere. Synth pads stretch like mist across the arrangement. Electronic textures shimmer quietly in the distance. The rhythm barely touches the ground. Then the voice enters. When Terry Nunn begins to sing, she doesn't overpower the music. She moves inside it. Her delivery is soft but emotionally precise, balancing vulnerability with control. Each phrase feels suspended in air. The lyrics describe a moment where attraction becomes something deeper, a connection forming slowly, almost invisibly, until suddenly it becomes impossible to ignore. The chorus arrives like a sigh, "Take my breath away." 3 simple words, but within the song they carry enormous weight. Because the arrangement has built such delicate tension, the emotional release feels powerful, even without volume. That contrast became the song's signature. A quiet, hypnotic atmosphere surrounding a melody that listeners instantly recognized as something special. When the film was released in 1986, the song quickly escaped the boundaries of the movie screen. Radio stations began playing it constantly. The track climbed charts around the world. Eventually, Take My Breath Away reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and won the Academy Award for Best Original Song. But statistics alone can't explain its lasting impact. The real magic happens in those first few seconds when the opening synth appears. Because in that moment, listeners are transported somewhere specific. Back to dimly lit theaters. Back to teenage bedrooms filled with cassette tapes. Back to a time when love songs unfolded slowly, allowing emotion to grow naturally rather than rushing toward the chorus. The 1980s were famous for bold sounds and big productions. Yet some of the most powerful moments came from restraint. And Take My Breath Away remains one of the clearest examples of that truth. A song that proves sometimes the most unforgettable music begins not with noise, but with silence. Number 7, Careless Whisper by George Michael. 4
As I take your hand.
notes, that's all it takes. Before a single lyric appears, the saxophone announces itself with a melody so distinctive that listeners recognize the song instantly. The opening of Careless Whisper is not just an introduction.
It's easy to pretend I know you're not a fool.
It's a declaration. But what makes the story behind the song remarkable is how early it began. At just 17 years old, George Michael imagined the core idea while riding a bus on his way to work as a DJ. The phrase "careless whisper" appeared in his mind alongside the image of a relationship collapsing under the weight of guilt and regret. The concept stayed with him. For months, he quietly developed the melody, shaping the lyrics with careful attention to emotional detail. Unlike many pop songs built around simple romance, this one explored something more complicated. The feeling of knowing you have damaged something valuable. The narrator of the song stands in a crowded room, watching someone he loves dancing with another partner. The scene unfolds slowly, heavy with unspoken regret. The music mirrors that emotional tension. Soft percussion moves cautiously beneath the melody. Electric piano chords drift through the arrangement. The bass line holds everything together with quiet restraint. But the defining moment remains the saxophone. Finding the right sound was not easy. During recording sessions, George Michael rejected multiple performances because none captured the tone he imagined. Nearly 10 different saxophonists attempted the part before the perfect interpretation finally appeared. When it did,
Never without your love.
the result was unforgettable. That smooth, eye-aching melody became one of the most recognizable instrumental hooks in pop history. When Careless Whisper was released in 1984, the reaction was immediate.
We could have been so good.
The song topped charts across the globe. Millions of listeners connected with the emotional honesty in the lyrics. But the deeper reason for its success lies in something more universal. Everyone understands
Please stay, and I'm never gonna dance.
regret. Everyone knows the feeling of wishing they could rewind a moment and make a different decision. The song captures that sensation perfectly. George Michael's vocal performance walks a delicate line between confidence and vulnerability. He doesn't exaggerate the emotion. Instead, he allows the melody to carry much of the weight. That restraint gives the song its timeless quality. Decades later, the opening saxophone still triggers instant recognition. A few notes, a memory. A moment where music and emotion become inseparable, and somewhere in the distance, a saxophone.
To cheat a friend, waste the chance that I will get.
Number 6. Still Loving You by Scorpions. The song begins almost like a whisper. A quiet guitar line stretches across the silence, fragile and reflective, as if the instrument itself is remembering something painful. This is how Still Loving You begins. Not with thunder, not with the explosive energy people usually associate with a rock band like Scorpions. Instead, it begins with vulnerability. The melody actually existed years before the world heard it. Guitarist Rudolf Schenker had been carrying the musical idea since the mid-1970s, but the band hesitated to release it. At the time, the song felt too emotional, too exposed. It waited in the shadows for nearly a decade. But great songs are patient. They wait for the right moment to appear. That moment arrived during the recording sessions for the album Lauper. At first sting in the early 1980s. Singer Klaus Meine walked through a quiet winter park one afternoon, thinking about the story the melody wanted to tell. When he returned, the lyrics were already forming in his mind. They told the story of two people standing in the aftermath of a broken relationship. The damage has been done, the arguments have happened, and yet something stubborn remains. Hope. The song asks a difficult question. Is it possible to rebuild love after it has already collapsed? The arrangement answers that question slowly. The opening guitar phrases feel hesitant, almost uncertain. Then the drums begin to rise. The bass grows stronger. Electric guitars swell with emotion. By the time the chorus arrives, the song transforms into something enormous. The voice of Klaus Meine climbs higher and higher, pushing toward notes that feel almost painful to reach. I'm still loving you. It's not a confident declaration, it's a confession. That emotional intensity turned the track into one of the most powerful rock ballads of the decade. When it was released in 1984, Still Loving You connected with audiences around the world. In some countries, it became more than just a hit song. It became a cultural moment. In France alone,
I'm still loving you.
the single sold well over 1 million copies. Fans reportedly said the song had helped save relationships, inspiring couples to give love another chance. That kind of impact cannot be measured by charts alone. Because the power of the song lies in its honesty. It doesn't promise that reconciliation will be easy. It doesn't pretend that pain disappears overnight. Instead, and it captures the fragile moment where two people decide whether they are willing to try again. That emotional crossroads is something every generation understands. Number 5. Every Breath You Take by The Police. At first, the song sounds gentle. A clean guitar line repeats patiently. The rhythm moves with calm precision. Everything about the arrangement feels soft, almost comforting. But beneath the surface, something darker is hiding. When Sting wrote Every Breath You Take, he was going through one of the most turbulent periods of his life. Personal relationships were unraveling, and the emotional tension inside the band The Police was reaching its breaking point. One sleepless night, while staying in the Caribbean, a phrase appeared in his mind. Every breath you take. The rest of the song followed quickly. On the surface, many listeners interpreted it as a love song. The melody is smooth, the delivery calm, and the chorus feels strangely reassuring. But the lyrics tell a completely different story. And this is not a song about affection. It is a song about obsession. The narrator watches someone constantly. Every move, every step, every breath is observed and monitored. The language of romance becomes something unsettling, almost haunting. That contrast is exactly what gives the song its power. Musically, the track is built around one of the most recognizable guitar patterns in pop history. Guitarist Andy Summers created the delicate riff in a single take, adding a shimmering texture that carries the entire arrangement. Behind it, the rhythm section remains tight and restrained. Nothing distracts from the hypnotic repetition. The result is a song that feels calm on the surface, but uneasy underneath. When it was released in 1983, Every Breath You Take became one of the biggest hits of the decade, and it spent 8 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and eventually won the Grammy Award for Song of the Year. Ironically, the track became popular at weddings. Even Sting later admitted that many listeners misunderstood the meaning entirely. But perhaps that misunderstanding reveals something interesting about music. Sometimes a melody can disguise the truth inside the lyrics, and sometimes the most haunting stories arrive wrapped in the most beautiful sounds. Decades later, that gentle guitar pattern still begins the same way. Quiet, elegant, unassuming. And the listener slowly realizes that not every love song is about love. Number 3, Is This Love by Whitesnake. The guitar glides into the room with quiet elegance. Instead of the roaring riffs fans expected from Whitesnake, the introduction of Is This Love feels almost delicate. A soft keyboard melody follows, drifting across the arrangement like warm light through a window. It's the sound of a band discovering a different side of itself. When David Coverdale first wrote the song, he never intended to sing it himself. The composition had originally been created for Tina Turner, whose powerful voice seemed perfect for the emotional tone of the lyrics. But when the record label heard the demo, they made an unusual request. They asked Coverdale to keep the song. What followed was one of the most surprising transformations in 1980s rock, and the band, known for heavy riffs and loud energy, suddenly revealed an entirely different emotional palette. The arrangement remains spacious and restrained, allowing the melody to breathe. The lyrics describe a moment of uncertainty that feels both exciting and frightening. Someone begins to realize that their feelings have grown deeper than expected, but they hesitate.
How can I tell you, babe, my back's against the wall?
Because love always carries risk. The chorus asks the question directly, is this love that I'm feeling? Coverdale's vocal performance captures that emotional tension.
'Cause it's really gotta hold on.
Perfectly. His voice moves between strength and vulnerability, suggesting someone who is both confident and unsure at the same time. That balance turned the song into one of the most successful
Can't stop the feeling. I've been this way before.
ballads of the decade. When it was released in 1987, Is This Love reached #2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the band's biggest international hits. The music video added another layer to the song's legacy, featuring Tawny Kitaen, whose appearance became an iconic visual symbol of the era. But beyond the video and the charts, the song remains powerful because of its emotional honesty. Everyone has experienced the moment when affection begins to transform into something deeper. The moment when excitement mixes with uncertainty. And in that moment, the question feels unavoidable. Is this love? Number 2. Forever Young by Alphaville. The opening synthesizer sounds like the beginning of a dream. Soft pads stretch across the background while a gentle melody rises slowly into the air. There is something reflective in the sound, almost philosophical. That atmosphere defines Forever Young. When the
music's for the sad man.
members of Alphaville first worked on the track in 1984, it didn't resemble the ballad the world would eventually hear. The early version moved faster and leaned toward dance music. But something felt wrong. The emotion wasn't landing. After days of
expecting the worst, are you gonna drop the bomb or not?
experimentation, producer Andreas Buder suggested a radical change. Strip the song down, remove the excess rhythm, slow the tempo. Let the voices and synthesizers carry the feeling.
Never sitting in a sandpit, life is a short.
The moment they heard the new arrangement, they knew they had discovered the true identity of the song. And singer Marion Gold wrote the lyrics during a period when the shadow of the Cold War still loomed over Europe. For many young people at the time, the future felt uncertain.
Can you imagine when this race is won?
The song became a meditation on time, on youth, on the fragile hope that life will remain meaningful as years pass.
Heaven can wait, we're only watching the skies, hoping for the best.
Forever Young. The phrase sounds simple, but within the context of the song, it becomes something deeper. A wish, a prayer, a reflection on mortality. The music video reinforced
Today, so many songs we forgot to play.
that feeling with surreal imagery of people stepping through a glowing portal, as if crossing from one era into another. Over the decades, the song has continued to evolve. Artists across multiple genres have covered it. Films and television shows have revived it for new audiences, but the emotional core remains unchanged. Because every generation eventually asks the same question: how do we hold on to the moments that matter most? And for a few minutes, Forever Young offers a musical answer.
So many dreams swinging out of the blue.
Number 1, I Want to Know What Love Is by Foreigner. Some songs
A little time to think things over.
begin with inspiration, others begin with confession. The story of I Want to Know What Love Is started in the quiet hours of the night. Around 3 in the morning, songwriter Mick Jones sat alone, reflecting
Better read between the lines.
on his life and relationships. Fame had arrived, success surrounded him, but something inside still felt unresolved. In that silence, a sentence appeared. I want to know what love is. It didn't sound like a lyric at first. It sounded like a question, a genuine search for understanding. When Foreigner recorded the track for the album Agent Provocateur, they approached it differently from their usual rock recordings.
Can't stop now.
Instead of relying on loud guitars and aggressive energy, the band allowed the song to grow gradually. A quiet keyboard progression opens the arrangement, or the rhythm section enters carefully. The vocal begins almost like a prayer. Then something extraordinary happens. A gospel choir rises behind the lead vocal, lifting the song into a completely different emotional dimension. That choir, recorded with the New Jersey Mass Choir, transforms the track from a personal reflection into something universal. The chorus expands. I want to know what love is. I want you to show me. It no longer feels like one person speaking. It feels like the voice of everyone who has ever searched for meaning inside relationships. When the single was released in 1984, the world responded immediately. The song reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the most enduring power ballads ever recorded. But its legacy extends far beyond chart success. One, because the song asks a question that never disappears. What does love really mean? Decades later, listeners still return to the song for the same reason. The music doesn't claim to have all the answers, but it reminds us that the search itself is part of the human experience. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a song can do is simply ask the question out loud. I wanna know what love is.